can redemption truly feel sweet when it comes at the cost of another man's dreams? There's a heavy, uncomfortable irony hanging over the Atlanta Falcons facility this week. One that sits like a stone in the pit of your stomach. Kirk Cousins, the $180 million quarterback who was supposed to be the answer, finds himself back under center not because he earned it, but because fate dealt a cruel hand to the young man who replaced him. And if you listen closely to Cousins' words this Wednesday, you can hear something we rarely detect in the polished world of professional sports. Genuine heartbreak mixed with the uncomfortable reality of opportunity born from tragedy. This isn't the comeback story anyone wanted to write. Not the Falcons front office, not the fans, and certainly not Kirk Cousins himself. The uncomfortable truth behind Atlanta's quarterback situation when Atlanta inked Kirk Cousins to that massive 4-year, $180 million deal, the football world understood the reality beneath the headlines. This wasn't really a 4-year commitment. It was a 2-year, $100 million lifeline with creative accounting for the remaining years. The Falcons were betting big that the veteran quarterback could deliver immediate results and justify that astronomical price tag. For a brief, shining moment, it looked like genius. Cousins guided the Falcons to a promising 6-3 start, and Atlanta appeared poised to end their playoff drought in style. Then came Week 10 against the New Orleans Saints, the same opponent they'll face this Sunday, and everything changed. Cousins suffered an injury that didn't just derail his season. It fundamentally altered his trajectory with the franchise. Fast forward 1 year, and the landscape has shifted dramatically. Penix Jr., the 8th overall pick in the draft, who was supposed to be the future, had seized the starting role and given the Falcons a spark they desperately needed. The controversial decision to draft Penix, while simultaneously paying Cousins elite money, suddenly looked prescient rather than puzzling. But football, as we're reminded time and again, is a cruel mistress. Penix's season ended abruptly with another devastating injury, the 5th season-ending setback of his young career, before even reaching his 26th birthday. And now Cousins finds himself thrust back into the spotlight, not as the conquering hero returning to reclaim his throne, but as the reluctant replacement for an injured young player he genuinely cares about. Cousins' heartfelt response. More than just coach speak when Kirk Cousins stepped to the microphone Wednesday, he didn't lead with talk of preparation, game plans, or his own readiness. Instead, he did something refreshingly human in a sport that often demands robotic professionalism. I just wanted to acknowledge how difficult this injury is for Michael, Cousins began, his voice carrying genuine emotion. My heart is broken for him. He's someone who has handled adversity so well throughout his football journey, and unfortunately, he's having to do it again. These aren't the carefully seizing an opportunity. This is a 36-year-old veteran who has been fortunate enough to avoid career-threatening injuries until recently, expressing authentic empathy for a 25-year-old who has already endured 5 such catastrophes. Cousins continued, painting a picture of Penix's future that stands in stark contrast to the present darkness. I'm very confident he still has a lot of good football ahead of him. Probably more good football ahead than behind, for sure. So he has a lot to look forward to. But unfortunately, he'll have to be patient. But it's a tough situation, and we'll support him throughout the entire rehabilitation process. The resilience of Penix Jr., a story of repeated comebacks. To understand the magnitude of this latest setback, you need to appreciate the mountain Penix has already climbed. His journey from Indiana to Washington to becoming a top 10 NFL draft pick reads like a Hollywood script, except Hollywood would probably reject it as too unbelievable. For season-ending injuries at Indiana, for times watching his dreams deferred, for times having to rebuild not just his body but his confidence, his draft stock, and his future. Yet, somehow, Penix emerged from that crucible not broken, but forged into something stronger. Cousins shared a revealing anecdote that illuminates Penix's mental fortitude. I remember one time when we were traveling together to a game last season, and I said, "Do you get nervous before games?" He replied, "Not really, because I've been through so much, and when you go through so much, you end up enjoying the opportunity." Think about that for a moment. a rookie quarterback traveling with a $180 million veteran, displaying the kind of perspective that usually takes a decade to develop. That's not just maturity, that's wisdom earned through suffering. I thought that was a great observation from a young player, that perspective Cousins reflected, and I'm sure he's adopting that same perspective now. But that's why I feel for him, because he's already been through so much and has such a good perspective. That's why, when he gets back to playing, we're going to support him and expect great things from him in the future. The athletic paradox. Explosive despite the scars. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Penix's story is how his body has defied the accumulated damage. Cousins revealed a detail that should give Falcons fans hope for the future, even as they process this latest disappointment. Mike has been through this before, and that's why I say he's a resilient person, Cousins explained. It's incredible because he's very athletic. Even having suffered the knee injury, he has some of the best numbers in our weight room, where we measure muscular explosion. Let that sink in. A quarterback who has suffered 5 major injuries still posts elite explosiveness metrics. His previous ACL tears haven't diminished his athletic ceiling, a fact that bodes remarkably well for his recovery from this latest setback. That's where you realize he has a bright future in football, because the previous injury never limited his athletic performance, Cousins continued. And I don't expect this one will either. Therefore, I believe he still has a lot of brilliant football ahead of him. Cousins' redemption arc. A steep climb ahead while Penix begins the long road to recovery, Cousins faces his own daunting challenge, proving he can still be the quarterback the Falcons paid him to be. The circumstances couldn't be less favorable. This Sunday's rematch against the New Orleans Saints carries painful echoes of last year's turning point. The Saints have struggled to a 2-8 record, yet the Falcons find themselves as mere 1.5-point favorites. That spread tells you everything about how far Atlanta's stock has fallen and how little confidence exists in Cousins' ability to deliver. The personnel situation makes matters worse. Star wide receiver Drake London will be sidelined again, just as he was in Cousins' last start against the Miami Dolphins, a game that became a 34-3 nightmare before a meaningless late touchdown made the final score slightly less embarrassing. With a receiving core featuring Darnell Mooney, Kadero Hodge, and David Sills v. Cousins managed just 111 passing yards through 3 quarters against Miami. He finished 21 of 31 for 173 yards, with no touchdowns and no interceptions, the statistical profile of a game manager treading water, not a franchise quarterback justifying a 9-figure investment. The front office dilemma. When plans collide with reality, spare a thought for Falcons general manager Terry Fontenot, whose bold dual quarterback strategy has imploded in the most unexpected way possible. The plan seemed clear. Sign the veteran to win now, draft the successor to develop for the future, and execute a smooth transition when the time was right. Instead, Fontenot finds himself with an aging quarterback who struggled before being benched, a promising young quarterback facing another lengthy rehabilitation, and a fan base growing increasingly restless with each passing week. The $100 million question? Literally, is whether Cousins can recapture even a fraction of the form that made him one of the league's most reliable quarterbacks for nearly a decade. The Saints game represents more than just another opportunity to climb back to .500. It's a referendum on whether the Cousins experiment can be salvaged, whether the investment can yield any return, and whether Atlanta's playoff hopes can survive this tumultuous quarterback carousel. Looking forward. Hope amid the chaos as the Falcons prepare for Sunday, 2 parallel stories unfold. Michael Penix Jr. begins the rehabilitation process he knows all too well, armed with the perspective and resilience that have defined his career. Kirk Cousins attempts to author a redemption story that feels hollow even as he pursues it, knowing his opportunity comes at the cost of a young man's season. The football gods have a twisted sense of humor. They've given Cousins exactly what he lost, the starting job, but stripped away the satisfaction of earning it back. They've tested Penix's legendary resilience once more, forcing him to prove yet again that he can rise from the ashes. For Falcons fans, The emotions are impossibly tangled. Relief that Cousins provides veteran stability. Heartbreak for Penix's latest setback. Frustration that the season has come to this. Hope that somehow, someway, this team can still salvage something meaningful from the wreckage. One thing is certain, when Penix Jr. returns to the field, and make no mistake, he will return, he'll carry with him the lessons of this latest trial. And Kirk Cousins will have had months to ponder whether his second chance felt like the opportunity he always wanted or the burden he never asked for. What do you think about Kirk Cousins' situation? Can he redeem himself and lead the Falcons to the playoffs? Or is this season already lost? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you're pulling for either Cousins' comeback or Penix's eventual return. This story is far from over, and we'll be here covering every twist and turn.